This is Vice Chair Rebecca Kemp. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled June 1st, 2022 meeting of the Zoning Advisory Commission to order. Staff, can you please certify that we're in compliance with the Iowa open law?
We are.
All right, staff, could you please call the roll?
Christ is absent. Kemp?
Here.
Morgan is absent. Norton?
Present.
Russell?
Here.
Sweet? Here. Zaccaro?
Here.
All right, Commissioners, you have the May 4th, 2022 meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to approve if there are no additions or corrections needed to those minutes?
I make a motion
Oops, sorry. Okay.
to approve the May 4th, 2022 minutes.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Thank you. Staff, could you please call the roll for the minutes?
Norton?
Aye.
Russell?
Aye.
Zaccaro?
Aye.
Kemp?
Aye. This evening, we have one action item and one item for public hearing on our agenda. The procedure for the action item is as follows. The applicant will approach the podium, make their presentation. We'll have the staff report, consideration by the commission, any further discussion by the commission, and the commission vote. So our first action item, we have the applicant as Greg Adams. The location is the Country View Estates subdivision, northeast corner of Hales Mill Road in Keegan Court, looking to approve the final plat of County View Estates Plat 3. Is the applicant or his representative here? You could start your presentation with your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Dave Schneider, Schneider Land Surveying, 906 First Street North, Farley, Iowa. And correct, I'm here representing Greg Adams and the entity that's developing this property, Hales Mills Development LLC. Basically, we're reconfiguring 6 of the lots that we recently platted. Just a situation where we've established the property lines. There was an old county road that was established in the 1870s that all of a sudden became an issue as we were building the first phase and going through the review process, the platting process on the second phase. And the neighbor was claiming to the fence on the south and east side of this old abandoned road right-of-way. And I made the recommendations to my client, and the attorneys are going back and forth, that we basically have enough area within these 6 lots to reconfigure them, even though there were 2 houses going in by some of the members, being built by some of the members of the LLC, that we could basically just replat these, meet the building setbacks on those houses, meet the size requirement for the septics out in the county, rather than potentially, and then basically creating this little sliver lot between the fence and the deed line that they could ultimately end up transferring to the adjacent property owner without getting this thing into a bigger legal battle that lasts 2 to 4 years and have lots with title issues, I guess. So that's kind of what we're doing here, and it's basically just cleaning up a potential title issue related to an occupation fence along that old abandoned road right away. So,
All right.
be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Could we have the staff go ahead with the staff report, please?
Yes. So I won't go into a great amount of detail. I think the applicant did a great job of articulating generally what is occurring here. So as Mr. Schneider mentioned, this property has been platted a number of times. The lots that are specifically in question here are lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, and 10, which is shown on the screen before you here. And the area outlined in yellow is the area that they're making the adjustment to. So they're essentially taking a portion of each of these lots to be able to remedy the issue they're having with that easement or that right-of-way with the neighboring property owner. This plat would create Lot A, again outlined in yellow there, Lot A, which would be a non-buildable lot. It also does not have the required 50 feet of frontage that would be required for this property. And so that is part of the request tonight as well, is to waive that bulk regulation for 50 feet of frontage for this non-buildable Lot A. Does not affect their sustainability tools, sustainability development tools, as they remain at 45 points for this subdivision. And with that, we're available to answer any questions.
Does Does anyone have any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a question. What's going to eventually happen with this Lot A? Does it depend on the outcome of
Yeah, this would be
lawsuits and lawyers and?
a great question for the applicant.
Yes, again, there's already an agreement between the owners and the attorneys that this Lot A is being transferred to the adjacent ag property to the north. And they're going to continue occupying it as they claim they do at this point. Ultimately, if there's any platting up there, this would have to be rolled in, absorbed into it. Again, this is out in the 2-mile jurisdiction. It's out in the county. It's zoned R2, but obviously our property, the property I'm working on, is being developed as R2. The property north is currently used as ag.
Okay, so it's going to eventually be part of Lot 1, southeast quarter, northeast quarter, section 7.
Ultimately, the purpose of this is to create the description, to deed it to them.
Gotcha,
I'm
okay.
assuming it's just going to hang
All
in
right, I
limbo
understand
until
now.
somebody develops that as an R2 or something
It's
different at some
Their
point.
problem later.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Answers your question, Pat?
Yep.
All right, anyone else have any questions for staff or the applicant? All right, now I'll entertain discussion. No discussion or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the plat waiving the requirements as needed for Lot A.
All right, thank you,
I'll
Pat.
second.
Second by Terry. All right, we have a motion and a second. Staff, can you please call the roll?
Russell,
Aye.
Sweet. Aye. Zucchero,
Aye.
Norton. Kemp.
Aye. That motion was approved. That will go on to the June 20th City Council meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so our next, that takes care of our action item. We have one item for public hearing. The order for that will be the applicant will make their presentation. Please state your name and address. Public commentary, if you are here to speak for or against, we'll ask that you start with your name and address. Applicant's rebuttal, staff report, any additional letters of support or opposition, consideration by the commission, a motion and a second. Any further commission discussion, and call the roll. So we have our item being the applicant, Rue Conlon Lore and Tim Conlon. The location is 620 South Grandview and 333 Bryant Street. Looking to rezone properties from C1 neighborhood commercial and R3 moderate density multiple family residential to the PC planned commercial.
Hi, Rue Conlon Lore and Tim Conlon. The addresses are 620 South Grandview as well as 333 Bryant Street. And we are interested in creating a PUD because we have bought both properties and they're currently zoned as one's commercially zoned, one's residentially zoned. And we would ideally like to create one cohesive lot and have them zoned together so that they're one building, or one business, I should say. So essentially, the main business will be at 620 South Grandview, but we do want to have a bakery, and we would like to put the kitchen for the bakery in the little building in the back, and that will serve our business and not take up so much space in the main building so that we have more space for our retail and more food offerings. So it really will make, I think, a lot better overall plan. And we're going to remodel both buildings, and we would like them to all be combined and look cohesive and have like a cohesive landscaping and parking. And I believe it would just make a lot more sense for us to have those buildings zoned together as a PUD.
Anything else to add?
Well, I'm not sure as far as any questions anyone has. We do, we have a bunch of slides. We were just sort of bringing this up. For instance, this is the original building. This image is from the 1890s. And the goal is to try to make it look similar to the way it looked in its original design. We will have a structure, like a little glass kind of solarium on the side. However, the intention is to bring it back to that architectural style, and we would like to make the salon building as well kind of have a similar look to that, so it all feels like one little campus that people can kind of appreciate in the neighborhood. And then these are just some additional images of renderings of the building, and then some marketing materials for the way the store will look and our floor plan, and just some ideas of what we've kind of put a lot of thought into the project so far. And then, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think what we're trying to do is bring back the building in the corner to to life, create a business that maybe will sustain itself longer than a lot of the businesses that have been there for the last 20 years. A lot of them are 1, 2, and 3 year businesses. So we thought, to do it right, we'd have to invest enough in both properties to make it work for us. And we're hopeful that we can, become a neighborhood amenity that people like to visit and use and that sort of thing. So we're pretty excited about it. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, thank you both. At this time, anyone on the commission have any questions for the applicant? All right. At this time, we'll open, you guys can have a seat. Thank you again. At this time, we'll open the floor for public input. If there's anyone in attendance that would like to speak for or against, please start with your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Helene McGee, and I live at 611 South Grandview, and I've lived in that residence for 19 years. And I do not have a problem with what they want to do, but I do want it on record that I have seen in my 19 years different businesses go into that property. And they come in with the idea that they are going to make a good profit. They find out that people maybe aren't eating as much or buying as much. So then we want to expand and get into serving alcohol and then other things which we had with the previous owners, an outdoor area, and then we get into that. So I like the idea. I have gone over to the previous businesses and bought their goodies and had their sandwiches and that, and I don't mind wine and beer being served with a meal. In the neighborhood, we do not want it going like into 10, 11 o'clock. It needs to be cut off earlier. There always is a concern about parking. I have visited with them about the parking issue, but, and if they plan on using the school's property, I do know that in previous owners approached the school about using it, and it was denied. So that is something that we need real clarification on this property. Also, down the road, I'm 73 years old, so I'm probably going to want to sell that property in not the too distant future. The years go by faster than I like. So I am looking down the road, and if they sell, they find out that this business isn't working the way they want it, and they sell that property, I would like reassurance that the new owners wouldn't be able to establish a bar there, or there'd be, real good, solid restrictions on what they could do with that property. We're proud of our area. We're a close-knit area, and South Grandview is a wonderful street. We like the idea of having a place like that, and there's a lot of walkers on South Grandview. They will like it, but our concern is the liquor, not with these people, but the future owners. And I'm repeating myself, but I have seen where people come in with wonderful ideas, they don't work out, they sell, and then we're at a problem. So thank you very much.
We appreciate your comments. Thank you. Is there anyone else in attendance that would like to speak for or against? All right, hearing none. I don't know if the applicants, if you want to make a rebuttal to any of the concerns.
Thank you, Helene, for your concern. I understand, and I have talked to a lot of neighbors about parking and other things like that. I would like to say for us, I mean, we're putting a lot of money and time and effort into this, and I consider it like a long-term investment. And to tell you the truth, it's not really not that we don't hope to make a profit, but it's not our main source of income, and it's something that's sort of like a passion project for us. And so I think, we have the energy and the finances and the time that we want to put towards it. And for us, we live in that neighborhood. We live near there. I want to be able to go there. I want my kids to go there. I think it's something that we feel very personally connected to. And I don't want to, I want the neighbors to be happy. I want them to feel like they're, involved in everything. We did have a meeting like Helene came to and let people come in and kind of talk to us about it. And most people have been very positive. And I know that the parking thing is an issue. And, we've currently we talked to someone that we know that lives right behind the firehouse, and they said they were willing to let us use their driveway for employee parking during busy hours and things like that. So we are trying to address it. And I know that Grandview is just a busy street regardless, because our business isn't open currently, and I'm there all the time, and it's busy even without the business. But we are trying to mitigate traffic and, all the kind of problems that the previous places had. And I just, want everyone to know that we are working to try to help make the neighbors happy, and we don't plan on being a bar or being open late. We personally don't want a bar, and so I think I understand her concerns, and it sounds like what we would do is agree to some sort of restrictions that even if we sold it someday, the next people would have to also be party to those restrictions, and they couldn't just do what they wanted.
Well, and the ordinance as presented does not allow a bar. So if somebody, if we sold and somebody bought, they'd have to come back to this commission and get approval to do that.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that would be a concern, so, thanks.
Okay. Should I stay up here, or should I go sit back down?
You can have a seat. Thank you so much.
As I said, I went to the initial meeting, and I'm happy with this facility going in there. It's just that I'm thinking down the road, and that's to protect ourselves.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any questions or comments online, Sheena? No input, nothing to add?
Have any
Okay.
other participations online?
Okay.
That one letter. There wasn't, an email submitted.
That we had seen.
I'm sorry, yeah, so I apologize if that's what you're referring to. We and I'll speak to this in my staff report as well, we have received a number of phone calls, people just very interested in understanding the use and what's allowed. The bar conversation has come up a number of times, and just generally how, what the PUD means, what that allows for. And so we've had those discussions. We've received just one letter of public input, and that was included in the packet this evening. That was actually in support of the project.
Okay, perfect. At this time, then, we will close the public input. I'll ask staff to go ahead with the staff report.
Certainly, thank you. Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. So just to kind of recap a little bit about the project does include 2 parcels. So the applicant is asking for a planned unit development that would encompass both of those parcels. Together, they accumulate or total approximately 0.18 acres. The existing zoning of those, as you can see here, the Grandview property on the bottom side here is C1, and then the smaller property on Bryant is R3 currently. They are irregular lots. They both have some non-conforming conditions with respect to setbacks and parking and so on and so forth. It's important to note. The site currently does have 12 off-street parking spaces, and the neighborhood is a mixed-use neighborhood. So with multifamily property directly to the north, it's single-family primarily to the south and the southwest, and then the Bryant School to the west, or east rather, of the property. A little bit of history, the 620 South Grandview Drive was, the first floor was previously used for a mixture of different uses, including a grocery, dairy and milk house, a floral shop, general office, bake shop, and eatery. The second floor has been a residential unit since the building's construction, in fact. At Bryant Street, this building has previously been used for office building, a chiropractor office, and then most recently a salon, and both buildings are currently vacant. So a little bit about the planned unit development. Again, this is a request to establish a planned unit development with a PC, which is a planned commercial designation. This is in order to operate the commercial business and then to also allow the residential unit above the first floor. PUDs are intended to encourage flexible and innovative design in the development of appropriate sites, and at the same time reduce to a minimum the impact of the development of the surrounding neighborhood. And that is what the applicant is hoping to be able to do here with this PUD, really wanting to utilize these two properties together as a campus of sorts for their business, and then also looking at other potential impacts as I'll go through later. It is important to note that the Zoning Board of Adjustment last Thursday, May 26th, did approve a variance for this property. The variance was required because the code says that in order to establish a PUD, you need to have at least a minimum of 2 acres of property or site. And because this is less than that, the variance was required and was approved. Also important to note that there will be an additional level of review here. The site plan review process will be applicable to this project. So as you'll see in the concept plan that we'll get to here, you'll see that there's some redevelopment proposed on the property, specifically the bakery building that would be on the north side. And that would require, along with any other development on the property, review by the development review team. And that's a staff level review. It includes engineering, planning, water, transportation, stormwater, building, housing, health department, leisure services, and some others beyond that as well. So there would be a number of people looking at this to review that for appropriateness to their applicable codes. A couple things to note here. So staff did take a look at the traffic counts in the area, and the Iowa DOT 2017 traffic counts do indicate that there's approximately 12,500 trips currently along South Grandview Avenue, and about 3,900 vehicle trips along Bryant Street. So a good amount of traffic already in the area here. Because the property is currently, the majority of the property is currently zoned C1, and that C1 zoning would allow for a number of commercial uses, which I'll identify here, and we did include a copy of the C1 permitted uses in the packet. Because of that, because commercial uses are already allowed, we do believe that the trips relative to this business will be negligible overall, based on the uses that would be currently allowed in those two zonings for those properties. Important to note here, the parking analysis. I want to point out an error actually in my report that I provided to the commission. When we were calculating the required parking for this property, I took a look at gross floor area, and actually the code does articulate that when calculating parking specifically for some of these uses, that we look at the area accessible to the public. So behind the counter space, for example, on the primary floor plan for 620, the area behind the counter that would not be accessed by the public, those areas would not count. And so you'll see here that the total required spaces do actually equal 16, not 21 as articulated in the staff report. So I just wanted to note that for the commission. The conceptual plan that was included in your packet does show 7 spaces on the property. So it is a reduction from what's currently there. But we also take a look at what's existing in the neighborhood for parking opportunities. And in this case, there is 4 spaces along Bryant Street on the east side. There's 6 spaces along the west side of Bryant Street. And there's also 5 along the northbound side of South Grandview. There is public parking up and down South Grandview. So there does seem to be a good amount of parking available for the general public in the area. And we also took a look at, for the residences in the area, the residential properties, how many of those actually have on-site parking, to see is there, an overflow from maybe a lack of parking on single-family properties. But we were able to determine that there's actually approximately 90.5% of the residential properties in the direct surrounding area do have 2 or more off-street parking spaces, which does meet the minimum code requirement of 2 spaces per residential unit. And another important thing to note, and we've heard some discussion with some of the phone calls we received, was with regards to the Bryant Street, Bryant Elementary School pickup. So one of the challenges here, obviously, is that there is a school, there are pickup and drop-off times. We don't regulate those times. Obviously, the school district is going to be a part of that. So yes, there is absolutely a possibility of congestion in the area. as a result of that, but that currently exists as well. So important to note that that's an existing condition for the site and for the current uses. And the other thing to note here is just that the neighborhood is highly walkable. It is conceivable that people in the neighborhood will bike and walk to this establishment, to, from, and so on and so forth. So that's something to note as well. I wanted to outline here this evening for the commission the PUD ordinance. So the ordinance was drafted. This ordinance would set forth the specific uses that would be allowed for this property. So it doesn't just give free rein. It still sets forth both permissible uses as well as prohibited uses. So the list that you're seeing on the screen here before you, those that are also listed in red are uses that overlap with the current C1 zoning, so what would be currently allowed on the 620 South Grandview property. So you'll see that indoor restaurant and restaurant with carryout are two that were added to this list for the purpose of this business establishment. And then I also want to bring to your attention the prohibited uses. So bar and tavern specifically called out in there, and we would classify a bar or tavern as a business that has more than, in which more than 50% of their sales are for beer, wine, alcohol. So that would be a prohibited use. So in the future, if the applicants do sell the property, that bar or tavern use would not be a permitted use by right. Any applicant or property owner looking to establish that type of use would have to come back through the Zoning Advisory Commission and amend this PUD. But also in there, we have, drive-through facilities, we have outdoor storage prohibited, standalone gas stations, tattoo parlors, body piercing shops, pawn shops, things of that nature. So also important to note that if this PUD is approved, if this ordinance is approved, the development of the subject property would be bound by the conceptual plan. And I'll bring that up in just a minute. And then obviously the development regulations set forth in the PUD as well, in the ordinance as well. So just wanting to know another thing that, again, unfortunately, an error that I had in my report. I had articulated that the comprehensive plan indicated the future land use for 333 Bryant as residential, and I was actually wrong on that. It is the future land use identified in our comprehensive plan for both of these properties, as you can see in the image here, is commercial. So that's something to note. And then just kind of articulated a few of the comprehensive plan goals and how we feel this would be in keeping with those goals. Specifically neighborhoods that are, walkable for residents, work with property owners and developers to encourage, again, create walkable mixed-use neighborhoods and locations identified on the future land use map, and then explore additional opportunities for limited commercial development within neighborhoods to provide enhanced local access to day-to-day goods and services like convenience goods, dry cleaning, et cetera. And this before you here is the conceptual plan. As you can see there, the parking space is outlined, and then as the applicant identified the potential redevelopment of this property to the north. And I should note here that if this were to move forward, there would need to be a lot consolidation to be able to allow that construction. And then the applicant mentioned a solarium they're hoping to construct on the east side of the 620 South Grandview, as well as potentially some outdoor area. Again, this is a little redundant from earlier, but here are the concept rendering for 620 South Grandview and the concept floor plans. Second floor showing a residential use, and then the first floor being primarily the business use, and the lower level being storage and the kitchen for the business, specifically for the food prep. And then obviously, as the applicant articulated, they are looking to perhaps construct this building at 333, which would be primarily the bakery for the use. So important to note here that public outreach, the applicant did actually reach out and hold a public meeting that was held on May 10th. So they did do some outreach prior to today's meeting to try to have some conversations with the neighbors. On our end through staff and per code, we did send out public notices to all property owners within 200 feet of the subject site. And as I mentioned earlier, we've received some phone call inquiries and some questions, but then we've received just one written response, which was included in your packet. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions that the commission may have this evening.
Does anyone have any questions for the staff? No questions. I'll bring it back to the table for discussion.
Yeah, Ms. Chairperson. I guess I'm just going to throw my opinion in here, answer a couple things, problems I see, but yet they're kind of self-solving. You know, when it comes to parking, in reality, if there's not enough parking for the patrons of the business, they're going to go somewhere else. And parking will kind of fit what it has available, and after that, it's going to, solve itself there. So if, they can't find enough parking to use the restaurant and the facility, then I think it's gonna, could be to its detriment. But I don't think that's a reason not to approve this by any means. I think this is a great reuse of an existing building. I think it's a wonderful adaptive use of the adjacent building, which is a hair salon or whatever it was in its last life. And yeah, I think this is great. I'm all for it.
Great, thanks. Anyone else have any input, feedback?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think it's a really good location for this type of business, being on the walkable street that Sheena mentioned, South Grandview. I think it's a perfect use for that property myself.
And I'll just kind of echo the building that you looking, beautiful, will be really cosmetically appealing to that area, I think, so. All right. Any other comments, questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommend approval to the city council for the rezoning to the PUD as presented.
All right, thanks.
Second.
Scott. Second by Terry. All right, we have a motion, a second. Staff, can you please call the roll?
Sweet.
Aye.
Zucchero.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Russell.
Aye.
Kemp.
Aye. That motion passes, and did we get clarification on which meeting that'll go into?
Yes, the applicant has some conflicts and they've requested the July 18th city council meeting. So this will be continued at that meeting, at that time.
Okay, so that will go on to the July 18th then meeting. All right, at this time, we'll take items from the public. Anyone may address the commission on matters that are of concern, that are not on the agenda. If anyone has anything? All right, hearing none, are there any items from the commission? I would like to welcome Ike again to our commission. This is his first meeting, so thank you for joining us. Being part, serving the community, so thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, any items from staff?
We have two zoning advisory commissioner terms that are set to expire, so Mr. Norton and Mr. Mulligan. So just wanting to remind them as a gentle reminder, if they're interested in continuing, to please reapply. But yes, just bringing that to the attention. Other than that, we do not have any additional information today. Anything to add?
All right, hearing none, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion was carried. Thank you for attending the zoning advisory commission meeting. Thank you, everyone.